I've been frequenting this subreddit for quite some time now, and I have a few stories I wanted to share on here. I want to start off with the most recent and to date the scariest experience of my life. For reference, I'm a 20-year-old male who weighs about 200 pounds, and I'm 6'0". I live in the suburban area of a very large city, which I won't disclose because if I did, it would make it extremely easy to figure out where I live. And this experience happened to me about 2 weeks ago, and I'm still shaken up by it. I work as a busboy on the weekend at a popular catering home near where I lived. I've been working there for a little over a month at that point. It was actually my last day working there since I had another job that was offering me more hours with better pay. I had to work at a party that lasted from 7 p.m. up until midnight, and I had to stay for almost 2 hours after the party was over to reset the room for the following morning. Around 2 a.m., we finished resetting the room and were told we could leave. I was about to walk out of the building when my boss ran over to me and asked if I could help her move a table to the upstairs room real quick, which I did. We placed the table where it needed to go, and then we both went back downstairs to leave. We walked outside and said goodnight to each other as she was getting inside an Uber car she had requested to take her home. Now, due to numerous setbacks in my life, I unfortunately do not have a driver's license yet. The catering hall is only about a 40-minute walk away from my house, and I don't mind walking. But during my time working there, my parents were nice enough to drive me to and from work. My mom told me to call her when I got out of work, and she would give me a ride as she didn't want me walking home by myself that late at night. I gave her a call and her phone immediately went to voicemail, indicating that it was off. I tried again, and the same thing happened. I thought to myself that she must have fallen asleep on the couch and forgot to put her phone on the charger, so it must have died. She does this very often at night. I called my dad, hoping that his phone wasn't on silent as it usually is when he goes to sleep. As luck would have it, it must have been, since I called his phone a few times and got no answer. Shit. All my coworkers had left, so I couldn't ask anyone I worked with for a ride home. And the only bus nearby that would cut my walking trip in half stops running at midnight, so I couldn't take the bus home either. I didn't call an Uber since I forgot my debit card and only had 2 singles on me. Looks like I had to say fuck it and walk home instead. To give some perspective, the catering hall was located in between a service road that runs along a major highway and a street that rode along the coast side. In order to get home, I had to walk down the service road for about 10 minutes until I hit the aforementioned coast side road, which went underneath the highway and out onto the other side. Then I'd have to walk 2 more blocks up that road until it hits another street, and I'd need to turn right, walk another 10 minutes, half of which is uphill, until I reached the street and entered the community I lived in. I began walking, and about 5 minutes later I passed a bar, where I see a car idling in the parking lot with only the left headlight shining. The car was a white Toyota Camry, and there were 2 guys in the car smoking a cigarette. I quickly glanced over while passing by, but didn't think much of what I had seen. The bar closed at 1 in the morning, but I figured they were just 2 guys driving somewhere who pulled into the parking lot for a quick break. I turned onto the road that runs underneath the highway, and was crossing the service road on the other side when I get the sudden feeling to turn around behind me. I looked back to see the same car driving down the road I was walking along. It wasn't exactly pitch black, but it was still relatively dark enough at that point where I might not have recognized the car if both headlights had been working. I continued walking, and eventually turned right onto the road with the hill I mentioned earlier, when they slowed down next to me and the passenger rolls down the window. The road I turned onto was darker than the road I was walking on before, so I wasn't able to make out exactly what either of them looked like, but from what I could make out, they were both probably in their late 20s and were wearing dark clothing. The driver was a white male, while the passenger was a black male. The passenger rolls down the window and asks what I'm doing walking so late at night, to which I responded that I'm walking home from work. He asked me if I'd like them to give me a ride home. I responded by saying that was very kind, but I was walking home by myself. He gets visibly annoyed, and in a somewhat agitated tone, he said, "Nah man, it's dark and dangerous outside. You should let us drive you. We'll get you home safe and sound. Come on, you can trust us." At this point, the road was empty except for this car containing the 2 men and I. I get a really bad feeling in my gut telling me to get away as fast as possible. I decline once again and dart behind the car and walk across the street. I walk up and turn left into a parking lot of a different community about 2 blocks from my own that had a chain in front of it, preventing people without the proper key from parking inside the lot. All of a sudden, the driver rolls down his window and screams, "Get the fuck back here, you fucking bitch!" He flips a U-turn and pulls up to the entrance of the parking lot, and the passenger jumps out and begins chasing me. The driver peels off, presumably to get to the road on the other side to ambush me. My adrenaline immediately hits, and I begin sprinting away from this crazy man. He yells to me, "We're gonna give you a ride. Stop running away." I looked back and we had a bit of distance between us. He looked somewhat chubby and probably wasn't expecting me to be able to run so fast since I'm slightly overweight myself. I turn right onto the road and continue sprinting until I hear a car squeal down the road behind me. I look back to see a single headlight in the distance speeding down the road and the man chasing after me, starting to gain on me fast. I start freaking out and run and turn left onto the next road I reached and began making a break for the park, since the area of the park I was running towards was dark and thick with trees. As I ran into the park, struggling to continue sprinting as I was losing my breath, I looked back to see the car turn onto the road. The driver stops the car and yells at his friend, "Get back in the car. The cops hang out back there and they might see us. Leave him. We're getting out of here." The man chasing me stops and runs back towards the car. He flings the door open and jumps in. As soon as he slams the door shut, the driver flips a U-turn, speeds off, turns right onto the road ahead, and disappears. The park is extremely large, and I remember my parents talking about a good number of drug deals taking place. The police were starting to send officers to patrol that area at night to bust up any drug deals they witness, and that must have spooked my pursuers. I jogged quickly into the park and hid in the darkness underneath the trees for about 20 minutes, just to be sure they were definitely gone, and to try and calm myself down as much as I could. Afterwards, I walked through the park towards the exit, into my community with senses on hyper alert to be sure the creeps weren't back. Hell, for all I knew, maybe there was another weirdo lurking around who would torment me if they spotted me. I exited the park and ran down the block, made a right onto my street and quickly unlocked my door, went inside and locked it. My dog started growling, but stopped once he saw me walking up the stairs into the living room. I looked to my right to see my mom passed out on the couch while the TV was still on. I walked into my room and flopped onto my bed exhausted, both physically and emotionally. My dog must have noticed something was wrong because he jumped onto my bed and proceeded to lick me and try to comfort me. I was so relieved that I had gotten away from those 2 guys, and I was never happier to be in the safety of my own home than I was in this moment. I always knew it was dangerous to walk alone at night, and I usually don't, but I had hoped that when I did, I would be okay. I was proven wrong that night. I quickly ran my dog outside and changed into a t-shirt and shorts once I got back inside. I was thinking in what-ifs the entire time, but eventually I got myself to stop thinking in what-ifs and accept that nothing had happened and to be thankful that I'll never have to know what would-if. I managed to calm myself down enough to fall asleep. I woke up close to noon later in the day, and I walked into the living room. I said hello to my parents, and my mom gets up and hugs me, and apologizes profusely for falling asleep when she was supposed to pick me up. She said she woke up around 5 in the morning, and freaked out that she had fallen asleep and that something bad may have happened to me. She rushed into my room to see myself sound asleep, and was relieved that I got home safe. I didn't say anything about what happened to my walk home that night, as I knew it would devastate them to hear that they had almost lost their son, and my mom wouldn't be able to live with the guilt that she could have prevented the whole encounter if she had stayed awake to come pick me up. Up until this point, I haven't actually told anyone, except for one very close friend of mine. I have no idea what those 2 guys' intentions with me were once I got into the car, but I know for a fact they weren't good, and I don't think I ever want to find out what they were. I'm just glad I'm safe, and after sharing this experience with you guys, I hope to move on from it and leave it in the past finally. So I'm an escort, but I do a lot of my work through sugar websites. I essentially do pay-per-date sugar as a lot of my job. You give me some money and you act like my sugar daddy for a date, basically. When I first started sex work, I was contacted by a guy who called himself John on Craigslist. Very creative name for a client to come up with, I know. John wanted to meet me in public first, which is a very normal request. Actually, with sugar, I only agree to meet someone in public first anyway. Usually we meet at a restaurant or something and talk before deciding if we wanted to commit to something more sweet. I agreed. He asked me to wear a specific outfit. The outfit he wanted was kind of an odd one. I usually agree if I can, unless they want me to have an expensive outfit, or if they're asking me to do something that's not appropriate for the occasion, like wear a little black dress to Starbucks, or if they're asking me to wear something that would just not be flattering on me. He said he wanted me to be comfortable, and a lot of them do say that. He wanted me to wear yoga pants, running shoes, a sports bra, and a hoodie. I can definitely imagine a very cute version of an outfit like that, but I don't own one. I have baggy men's sweats with holes in them, a sports bra that's not flattering at all, running shoes that are covered in dirt, and a baggy men's sweater that doesn't zip up in the front. I told him so. I said he could get me a gift card to a cute girly yoga wear place, or I could pick something casual up and attractive to wear. He said no, and he said I could wear anything resembling his request, literally any sports clothes. It didn't have to look cute at all. I wasn't enthusiastic, but I didn't realize at the time that you can't accept these requests because the client will end up thinking you're ugly and won't want you back, so I said okay. He suggested we meet on the wharf. I said that was fine and suggested a reasonable time to meet. He said no, that we couldn't meet there, not at that time. Somebody would see him and he didn't want anyone to recognize him. He wanted to meet me at midnight instead. This is a common concern. I would be willing to go to another city, but not meet at off hours. I have to think of my safety too. That's the whole point of meeting in public. I suggested we go to a city about an hour south. He said okay and he picked the pier. He suggested we meet at 1 a.m. That way he would be able to leave his house at the same time as he would have for the wharf. No. I said I wouldn't meet at 1 a.m. and suggested we meet at around noon or 6 or something reasonable. The restaurants and all the businesses would otherwise be closed and it was rainy. He said he liked meeting in the rain. The rain was magical. He again said he couldn't meet during the day, otherwise someone would see him. If it was the pier and wharf that was bothering me, he was willing to meet me at the beach. In fact, he could even meet me at the beach tomorrow, at midnight. I told him maybe and to let me think about it. I waited about an hour and then I messaged him back with something like, "Oh John, I just think I'm not cut out to be a sugar baby. I'm just not ready for something like this." Then I changed his name in my phone to John Watery Grave and blocked his number from my Google. I tried to purposely let him down easy in case he was going to stalk me or get angry or something. Also, it was good not to give away any red flags that I was picking up on, so he couldn't alter his behavior and play more easily on other sex workers. I reported him to bad date sites where sex workers compare notes, but I didn't call the cops because, well, I'm an escort. Why would I call the cops? Support decriminalization if you think I should have been able to call them. He emailed me later during the next stretch of rain that we encountered and asked if I would be okay with meeting at 3 a.m. on the beach, or if not 3 a.m. on the wharf, or if not that, 4 a.m. on the pier south of us. Then he asked if I still wasn't willing if I had a friend with a similar build who would be willing to do it, and if so, she would humor him and contact him through Craigslist. Years later, I think it's surreal that I met somebody who was in all likelihood a serial killer, or at least wanted to be one. He said he had to leave his house right before midnight. He had to meet a woman wearing running clothes at a place right near the water on a rainy night, and there was just so much about it that was creepy. He even wanted somebody with a specific frame from Craigslist. I found this thread in 2014, and have been obsessed with it ever since. I can't believe I didn't think about posting my own story here sooner. Just as a reference, this happened almost 2 months ago to this day. I think it's worth mentioning that while this story takes place in a Southeast Asian city with a population of a little over 1.5 million, I didn't always live here. I was born and raised in a small town in the Midwestern United States. You know, the kind where everyone knows everyone, and we only get attention during an election year. Anyway, my parents and I made a big move in 2014 due to a number of reasons. The biggest one being so my mother could be with her family, since this is her homeland. However, the town where all my relatives live is about 8 hours away. We had to move to our city because it's the safest in the region for foreigners, and my dad is a pretty obvious white man. Now, unlike every other college student in the world, I hadn't really done much this summer. The heat was blistering all hours of the day, and I didn't have money to spend even if I was willing to leave our air-conditioned apartment. The only thing enticing me to the outdoors were the incessant sounds of construction, due to a new unit being added to our complex. However, leaving was obviously inevitable, so toward the end of the month, my parents and I went to buy groceries. The next day, my mom and I went to buy some things we had initially forgotten, and the day after that, the two of us went to go pay some bills. That made 3 consecutive days of going out for the first time in literally a month. To say I was exhausted was an understatement. By 7 p.m. on the third night, I was already fast asleep on the living room couch. My mom woke me up around 10 that same night and told me to head up to my room. I was too tired to do my entire routine, so I just brushed my teeth quickly and went upstairs. I noticed my cat was already asleep in my bed, which happens once in a blue moon since he's basically my mom's shadow, so I got into bed while contorting myself at an angle that wouldn't disturb him. I turned on a dim light, plugged in my phone, and started playing random YouTube until I fell asleep. I didn't know what time it was, but I awoke to the feeling of my bed shaking. I tend to ignore movements like this usually, because they happen often when my cat sleeps with me. He has a habit of scratching his ear. But there was a pretty strong earthquake just the night before, so I assumed it might be another one, making me open my eyes and look down at my cat to see which of the two it was. Indeed, he was scratching his ear. Oh, and there was my mom at the foot of my bed. Nothing out of the ordinary, she was probably just checking on me before her and my dad went out for their 5 a.m. walk, as routine, and was bending down to pet the cat. I closed my eyes and was just about to slip back into slumber when my half-asleep brain realized that a number of things were indeed out of the ordinary. With my eyes that were barely open, I looked at my mom with blurred vision. The first thing that I noticed was that she was wearing one of my high school t-shirts. My mom and I are far from the same size, and she has no history of borrowing my clothes. Weird, sure, but not unsettling. Maybe she ran out of clean exercise shirts and decided to use one of mine. Then I noticed she was also wearing another one of my high school t-shirts, but this one was wrapped around her head in a weird way that outlined the shape of it, not covering anything but just framing the profile. In my peripheral, I noticed that my closet doors were wide open. My mom always nagged me to close them because she said it wasted the cool air coming from the air conditioner, so I made sure to keep them closed. Another random realization hit me when my brain finally registered the fact that while my mom does pet my cat when she comes in to check on me, she's never bent down like the person in my room was doing. Keep in mind, all these thoughts flooded my mind in about 5 seconds. Still, my half-asleep and stupid-as-fuck brain was more focused on why my mom was wearing my clothes, as opposed to all the other things that were off in this situation. I sat up and squinted my eyes so I could read the shirt, since there was writing on the back that would help me distinguish if it was actually mine, and not just one that looked like mine. And that's when the person turned to look right at me, before running out of my room, maintaining an ungodly crouching position that will be burned in my mind for the rest of my life. It wasn't until he was near the stairs that I fully processed what was happening. That person was not my mom. They weren't even female. Instantly, I shot out of bed and instinctively wrapped my blanket around me to cover my nightclothes that suddenly felt so revealing. It was only then that I began screaming. I hesitatingly followed him out of my room and watched as he ran down the wooden stairs with deafening steps that echoed throughout the 3rd floor, almost drowning out my screams. If I was going to get my parents' attention, who were sleeping on the other side of a closed door on the 2nd floor, I needed to be louder. I stood at the foot of the stairs and pushed my lungs to their limit. After what felt like ages, but was probably only another 5 seconds, my parents' door swung open, and my mom ran up the stairs with a panic-stricken expression that I will never forget. She grabbed me by the shoulders and shouted, "What? What's wrong?" I turned to look at her with my mouth agape and brows furrowed in a mixture of confusion and disbelief. Had she not seen the man when he ran right past their bedroom door? It all happened so fast, I wasn't sure if they had crossed paths or not. "Someone's in the house," I responded with a voice that I honestly didn't recognize. Without missing a beat, she wrapped her arm around me and ushered me downstairs. "Grab the gun," she shouted in the country's native language. We ran into my parents' bedroom where my dad stood in the doorway with tired eyes and a slumped posture. I pushed him into the room and turned around to close the door, simultaneously fiddling with the light switch so we weren't in complete darkness. "What are you doing?" my dad asked with a soft laugh as he switched the light after my attempts proved to be futile. I turned to him with the same incredulous expression I had when looking at my mom. He had been standing in the doorway to his room in perfect view of the man running away, yet somehow he seemed oblivious. "There's someone in the house," I repeated, watching his face drop in my words. With the door locked, I turned to my parents and watched them silently, waiting for them to say or do anything. For 19 years they had taken care of me and catered to my every want and need. Now there they stood, just as scared and defenseless as I was. My dad, an infamous A-type personality, kept his focus on the floor, most likely processing the situation before deciding what to do next. My mom was the opposite. Her cell phone was in one hand while the other hand was running through her hair so many times that I was sure strands were going to end up between her fingers. "I can't call 911. It's not working." I took the phone from her and dialed myself, bringing the phone up to my ear only to hear a monotone voice say, "Sorry, but your balance is too low. You can't make this call right now." In this country, most of the phones are prepaid, so if you don't have money on your account, you can't make any calls or texts. However, my mom said that she had added money to her account just a few hours earlier. I tried calling my aunt who lives 8 hours away and it worked. It was then that I figured out that you can only use cell phones to call other cell phones, and you can only use landlines to call other landlines, aka 911. The only problem was that our landline was in the 2nd floor hallway, a few feet from the other side of the door. Once I told my parents what our only option was, my mom opened the window and began shouting for help in her native language. I instantly shut the window. "Don't do that. They'll know we're defenseless and they'll come back." At the time this happened, we had been in the room for about 40 minutes. I was convinced that if they had left and then heard her screaming, they would come back since they knew we wouldn't have anything to defend ourselves. "Are you sure you saw someone?" "Maybe you were just dreaming," my dad said, this being his first string of words since barricading ourselves in. "How could he have gotten in? The door has 2 locks and a heavy pole across it." "No, I know what I saw," I answered without hesitation, but my brain started dissecting the possibility of the figure simply being a figment of my imagination. The sounds and movements he made were so vivid, but the situation as a whole seemed too surreal. There was no way someone could get inside with that pole acting as a shield, and neither of my parents had seen the man. Internally, I wasn't even 100% sure myself, but on the outside I stuck to my guns. "Okay, we need to get out of this room and call the police," my dad said restlessly. My overthinking got the best of me as I thought about us leaving the room. Was there more than one person? Were they waiting for us? Were they right outside the door? Or were they hiding and would spring out when we least expected it? Maybe they were still in our apartment, continuing to raid through our things since they knew we were too scared to leave. And they heard my mom screaming for help and came back to finish us. We searched the room for weapons to protect ourselves with, but we wouldn't find anything even remotely useful. What happened to the gun my mom was shouting about earlier, you ask? It never existed. She just said that so that the man would hopefully run away out of fear. So with a pair of broken scissors in my dad's hand and a small floor fan in my mom's hand, we prepared ourselves for whatever was on the other side of the door. My dad unlocked the door and it swung open swiftly, hoping to catch anyone out there off guard. The complete silence mixed with the eerie yellow lighting coming from our hallway seemed like a scene from a horror movie. Straight ahead, we all noticed that the door to the second floor balcony was wide open, and the screen on the window next to it had been pried open. The first feeling to run through me was assurance. Assurance of knowing that I wasn't crazy, and that I hadn't made this up. The second feeling to run through me was pure dread, knowing that I wasn't crazy, and unfortunately, this wasn't made up. We searched the second floor and found no one, and nothing that seemed out of the ordinary. We then moved on to the first floor, and found our pitcher of water dripping condensation on the kitchen table. My mom asked me if I had forgotten to put it back before I went to bed, but I distinctly remember going straight upstairs. I knew I hadn't gotten it out. Our windows have the glass on the outside and the screen on the inside, contradictory to typical American windows, and we saw the glass windows were wide open and the screen had been pried through. However, both the locks on the door were bolted, and the pole was still in place. We figured that the man had initially attempted to come in by putting his hand through the small gap he made in the screen window, trying to reach for the door so he could unlock it. However, I guess his calculations were off and he couldn't make the distance. That's when he climbed up to the second floor, probably scaling the apartment that the construction workers had yet to finish, and did the same procedure on the balcony window. We called 911 a total of 5 times, and it took them 45 minutes to get to our apartment, despite the fact that the police station is only 3 minutes away. While waiting, my mom knocked on the other apartments to let them know what was going on. Our complex consists of 4, but I'd say it looks more like a paired home with 4 different sections. The first one is rented out to an online business company, the second to a family who had just moved that exact night. We're the third, and the fourth has no tenants. Neither of them answered. The police eventually came and told us that someone had made a call earlier saying that they heard a woman screaming for help, but they couldn't find the location of the screams. They searched the house, but no one, and didn't even tell us how to file a report. The next day, my mom talked to the people at the first apartment, and they were obviously shaken up. They told her that they had heard her knocking, but it's company policy to not open the door from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. My mom moved on to apartment 2 and told them as well. The man and his pregnant wife said that they didn't hear anything. I was somewhat skeptical because my scream was pretty loud and all our windows in the second-story door was open. There's another building just a few feet away, so the sound resonates pretty loudly, making the construction booming even behind closed doors. With the first apartment it made sense because they used the first floor and all the windows were closed. My mom told the couple to be wary of the construction workers because she believed that they decided to rob us after seeing that my dad was a foreigner, automatically assuming we were rich or something. The man's face instantly dropped and his tone turned cold. My mom asked him for the landlord's number since the old number didn't work anymore, and he said he would give it to her after he visited her today since he didn't have it on him. It took him 4 days to finally get it to us, and he did so with what seemed like a sincere apology. That same day, we called the landlord and she seemed shocked, telling us that nothing like that has ever happened in any of her apartments before. However, my mom had talked to a tenant in the apartment complex behind us, and she said that she knows of at least 3 people in her complex who have had their place broken into. Later, the maintenance man came in to inspect our window, and we found out that the construction workers were hired because they're all members of our landlord's church, and the man who just moved in with his wife is the bishop of their church. Before my mom could even bring up her theory, the maintenance man told her that he was convinced it was the construction workers. We kept realizing that things went missing over the course of the next 2 weeks. My backpack, some sunglasses, money, jewelry, stuff out of our storage room. My phone was also taken. I assumed that when he was crouching over my bed, he was trying to reach for the phone and the charger, since I was probably laying on the wire or something. My laptop and a camera were both sitting on my desk next to my jewelry box, but he didn't take them. My parents assume it's because he was going to take the heavier items when he was about to leave, so he wouldn't have to carry them around. However, I didn't see anything in his hands when he was running away from me, which makes me think that he either left the other items by the door for easy exit, or there was someone in the house helping him. A few weird things. He took 4 of my shirts. He also went into my cousin's room and stole her towel. Thankfully, she had gone home for the summer, so she wasn't around, but it almost seemed as if the thief somehow knew that. He went into my room and her room, but completely avoided where my parents stayed. I also couldn't get over the fact that he drank our water straight from the jug, which would have made sense since he climbed to the 2nd story. However, this country is notorious for being superstitious, and my mom said that thieves tend to leave water out because it makes the homeowners go into a deep sleep, something about the water resembling the calming waves of the ocean. I've never been one to believe in superstition, and that's why she thinks I was able to wake up and they weren't. Just a few hours after my incident, we decided that we were going to move back to the States. And this wasn't the only occurrence affecting our decision, but it was the last straw that broke the camel's back. I'm just thankful that we all came out safe and nothing worse happened. What is up, guys? Blue Spooky here, as always. I just wanted to thank you guys so much for watching, especially if you made it this far to the end of the video. If you guys liked the video, please feel free to leave a like, comment, or subscribe if you feel so inclined. If you have any feedback or suggestions for stories you'd like to see, or anything like that, be sure to leave a comment below, because I always read all of the comments. I have a pretty big update for the channel for you guys. So, as you guys probably know, things have been pretty rough lately for the YouTube horror narrator community. Basically, on YouTube, a bunch of advertisers pulled out, and now everybody's getting way less returns on their views and everything like that. So, I wanted to announce that I finally set up a Patreon account where you guys can donate and contribute to the channel. If you like. Of course, it's never necessary. None of my content will ever be necessary to be paid for or anything like that. Basically, what Patreon is it's just a tip jar for artists, if you feel like supporting them. Of course, if you don't have the money or anything like that, please don't feel like you have to or anything. It's just there for people who want to. So I'll be leaving a link to that in the description of the video, and also probably in a comment with the timestamps for stories for this video. Please give me feedback on what you guys think about that. I'm a little bit nervous about it, but I hope it will go over well, and I hope you guys understand why I'm doing that. If you'd like to contact me, or if you have any stories you'd like to send in or that you'd like me to read, please be sure to take a look in the description of the video below. There will be links to all of my social media, including my Facebook, Twitter, and Gmail accounts. Send me a message on any of those, and I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. If you do decide to send in a story, please be sure to include in the header of the email, or whatever you choose to send, what the title of the story is, what the theme of the story is, if it has any, and how you would like to be credited in the description of the video the story appears in. If you're curious about the music used at all in this video, the music is always in the description below, in the order which it appears in the video, and I also leave links to the artists themselves in case you like their music and would like to give them support and check out more of their work. And of course, if you have any constructive criticism, please be sure to leave it in the comments below, as I'm always looking for new ways to improve the channel. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day.